committed persistent and repeated fraud. Last week, we proved that in our motion for summary judgment. Today, we will prove our other claims. My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law. And it is my responsibility and my duty and my job to enforce it. The law is both powerful and fragile. And today in court, we will prove our case.
1 year later.
Beneath all these questions, the question of mission creep has 6312 morphed into something that it was not meant to do.
All the defendants repeatedly violated.
Ms. Vail, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners?
And it was using...
I'm sorry, but what's being described sounds an awful lot like a potential commercial dispute between private actors.
I mean, you've got two really sophisticated parties in which no one lost any money. The case that you cite involved where there was damage to consumers, damage to the marketplace. You've got a scheme to get unsophisticated consumers to take out home loans. You got a collapse of Lehman Brothers. You don't have anything like that here.
And that's something you must address, because there has to be some limitation on what the Attorney General can do in interfering in these private transactions, as Justice Friedman said, that where people don't claim harm. So what is the limiting principle? The immense penalty in this case is troubling.
An appeals court has just thrown out President Donald Trump's $364 million civil fraud penalty. This just happened. It is a developing story. We're getting a lot more information, a big news story for the day. We're going to bring you more details as we get them. This just in.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having a great and wonderful day. Whoa, what we have here is the complete and utter victory of Donald J. Trump, where he has won against his civil fraud fine against Tricia James because the New York Supreme Court has thrown it out for being excessive. So it seems it's just another massive L for this very woke and far left prosecutor, and it's just a good day for Trump. What we have here is this. Now, obviously, I say good day for Trump, but technically it was yesterday. But I digress. We have this here from the New York Post saying Trump's massive $500 million civil fraud fine in AG Tish James' case thrown out by New York's appeals court. It says here, President Trump won a huge symbolic victory Thursday when a New York appeals court threw out the more than $500 million fine he owed an Attorney General Letitia James' business fraud case. The appellate division first department overturned the whopping $464 million judgment against Trump, but upheld a finding that the real estate tycoon turned president engaged in fraud by exaggerating his net worth for decades. I had a victory today. You know, they stole $550 million from me with a fake case, and it was overturned. So, yeah, that is a very good news. And this is just another prime example of Letitia James really just using failing everywhere she's done. I mean, her entire case has been collapsing for the past year and a half, to where everything has just not been going her way. The only time it was going her way was when she actually tried to prosecute and go after Trump. But ever since then, everything has just been a complete failure on her end. But the case stemming from a civil suit brought by James' office still remains in place. It will now go to New York's highest court as the legal battle between the state's top lawyer and the commander-in-chief continues. The 323-page decision included 3 separate opinions, but 3 of the 5 judges agreed the fine against Trump, which had grown to $550 million, including interest, was excessive. While the injunctive relief ordered by the court is well crafted to curb defendants' business culture, the court's disgorgement order, which directs that defendants pay nearly $500 million to the state of New York, is an excessive fine that violates the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. The main opinion by Judges Diane T. Redrick and Peter H. Horton read. Still, the 5-judge panel kept in place a ban on Trump and his 2 oldest sons, Donald Trump and Eric Trump, from running a company in New York for several years. The ruling kept in place an order for an outside monitor to oversee and file reports on the Trump organization's business dealings for 3 years. Those parts of the ruling have been on hold while the appeal was decided, and Trump posted a $175 million bond in place of paying the entire judgment during the appeal process. Yeah, so it ain't looking too great here for good old Letitia James. It says here, the interest and fines against everyone in the case, including Don Jr. and Eric and other Trump org execs, have ballooned to over $527 million since the February 2024 ruling from Manhattan Supreme Court, Justice Arthur Engoron. Thursday's decision was a blow to James, whose office prosecuted Trump, and to Engoron, as at the least two appellate judges found Engoron made errors in his rulings on the case. Yeah, so now we're going to jump to MSN now, because this is what they'll be talking about. Of course, it's called, I was going to call this like Liars Now, because obviously this is what it is. That's all what we could really call this. But they're going to be talking about this and screeching about the case in this matter. And yeah, it's great.
Has thrown out a massive civil fraud penalty against President Trump, a total that exceeded $500 million. They're calling that penalty excessive. Joining us now, NBC News legal Avalos and NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbach. Danny, break down this ruling for us.
Well, it's a lengthy ruling, and all the judges disagreed on their analysis, but they agreed on one final decision, which was that this judgment against Trump was a fine within the Eighth Amendment prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment and excessive fines. And in addition, it was punitive and it was excessive. That's really the conclusion. They concluded that because this was a punitive measure because there weren't any victims who were compensated. It was just a judgment against the company and against Trump. So the court here concluded, with a lot of disagreement among them, but did conclude that this was an excessive fine within the meaning of the Constitution's Eighth Amendment.
And Danny, when you say that,
yeah, which this goes down to show, guys, that this was a political attack, and only a political attack. Of course, you got people that are watching my channel knew it was political, but this further proves that Letitia James and whoever else was a part of this was going after Trump for nothing but political reasons, all right? That is what we have here. So there's no distinction. So she even violated the Eighth Amendment, and they even claimed that it was excessive. So that means, and of course, there were no victims in the process of this case. So the only other way you could probably conclude to this is that they did this for political reasons, because they didn't like Trump, or they didn't like Trump's political opinions, or etc. That's it. And that is why we would say this is a political attack on Trump, on him, against Trump. That's it. Plain and simple.
this was a lengthy ruling. We're talking to the tune of more than 300 pages. So we know that folks are going through it still. But Gary, give us a refresher of this case. Viewers are seeing on the screen from the time of the trial. How did we get here?
So you'll remember that Donald Trump was accused of kind of plussing up how much money he actually was worth and how much money the things he owned were actually worth. He tripled the size of his penthouse in documents to some of these financial lenders and brokers. You just can't do that. Yeah. And he was given a $300 million fine that has been plussed to $500 million because of interest. And that was 11 months ago now. And so this is a very significant win for Donald Trump. And it's also for his sons, because it was paused for his sons as well. So the entire Trump family is impacted by this. But I do want to get to a point that Danny was talking about, how everyone sort of had different opinions when they released this opinion. The appeals court said, one of them said, you know, penalties are supposed to stop people from doing things. They're concerned these individuals will reoffend, and it's getting rid of the penalty. Perhaps not the best idea here.
And for viewers, I think it's important for us to remind them there were certain lawsuits that were against the Trump organization. This is one of the suits that falls in that category. And interestingly, Danny, it was brought by the Attorney General of New York, Tish James. And right now, you've sort of got this subplot happening where the Trump Department of Justice now has subpoenaed Tish James for basically the records related to this lawsuit. One of the promises that they made on the campaign trail was, OK, investigate the investigators. This is certainly an example of that. Abby Lowell, Tish James's attorney, said that this is blatant political retribution. But talk about that bookend here that is new now that the administration is Trump's again.
There's no question this decision by the appellate division will embolden Trump and maybe the DOJ, but it's not really a true exoneration. What the court concluded, although the judges were somewhat fractured, very fractured, was that the defendants were liable. It's just that the punishment itself was excessive. Now, this may be a distinction without a difference to Trump's supporters, but it is an important point to be made. At least spiritually, Trump probably feels vindicated because certainly in all of our minds, I mean, being found liable, but having the actual penalty removed feels like a win. But the court did conclude that the liability determination was proper and that the attorney general had the authority to bring this cause of action under the statute.
That's such an
Yeah, which is again a problem because what we have here is that when Letitia James brought this case up against Donald Trump, this led to a lot of companies and people afraid, at least in New York, to not want to host businesses or do any business there in New York, because if you happen to go against the mantra that is the Democrats or their opinions, then they can just sue you for almost your entire company's worth, and then you're doomed, right? And this is why Kevin O'Leary went out and blasted this, because it was insane, because a lot of companies do this, and there was no victims. And again, this is going to be a huge problem because it's probably going to open up a lot of lawsuits against Letitia James as well, etc., because this is insane. So yeah, maybe Trump is not out of the woods yet, but this is still a massive victory, and this is another sign that her court case is probably going to go down in the water. It's excessive. And at the end of the day, guys, this is just where we're at, where we have Democrats and all these people going out and specifically blaming Trump or going after Trump for political reasons, and that's the insanity here. I mean, again, even if you try to get Trump for like maybe $5 million, that's significantly less and way more manageable than the excessive amount for $527 or $500 million or $500 million. So again, we'll see where this leads, but this is a massive victory for Trump, pure and total, and a horrible, humiliating loss for Letitia James here. It is terrible. I mean, MSNBC is coping really hard right now. They're really crying about it, but at the end of the day, it's not looking too great for Letitia James. And when you have a New York court kind of siding with you, especially if you're a part of the right, you have to get that as a massive victory. So, guys, that's it for the video. Let's guys share. As always, take care, my friends.